I'm Kaylee, and today I'm reviewing Understanding Lord of the Rings, the best of Tolkien criticism. One of my goals this year has been to read a Tolkien or C.S. Lewis related book every month. So this past month it was Understanding the Lord of the Rings. This is a collection of essays that brings together positive criticism of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. So it's not negative criticism, it's positive literary criticism. And it spans decades and decades of scholars writing about Lord of the Rings. Before we dive in, I'm going to reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're going to shout out somebody randomly. Today's shout out goes to Faerie. I will leave a link to their channel in the description. Be sure to go over and subscribe to them. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you love Lord of the Rings. And be sure to follow me over on Goodreads and Instagram and all the places. So these essays dive deep into the literary modes and philosophic views that make Tolkien's work so lasting and impactful. We explore the meaning behind the myth. We learn about good and evil and Tolkien's deep faith in Christ. Analyzing his literary style, we learn about fairy tales, the universal truth behind every myth, and Tolkien's ideas of sub-creation. We get to consider the history of the hero quest, going all the way back to ancient times, and how that affects our ideas of hero worship today, and how Tolkien used different types of heroes in The Lord of the Rings. This book is now full of little sticky tabs where I bookmarked especially interesting places, and little pencil markings where I had to mark in insights that particularly captured my imagination. After reading this book, I will look at Aragorn and Gandalf and Frodo and Sam in a completely new light. However, I did not agree with everything in every essay. Some of the writers seemed to me to be stretching a little bit to make some certain point, and I just didn't see the connection at all. One essay went on and on about these certain psychological archetypes that I just didn't agree with. And another essay had this part about how Pippin represents all young people who mischievously rebel against their elders. So far, so good. But then they said that Pippin taking the Palantir was because Gandalf was just too scared to use the Palantir. And it says, the moral of this seems to be that the young sometimes have their own answers for what their elders fear. That was from Marion Zimmer Bradley. I just didn't accept their interpretation, but of course everyone is entitled to their own perspective. However, that same essay by Marion Zimmer Bradley had a wonderful insight into Éowyn's crush on Aragorn, saying that she didn't really ever love Aragorn. She wanted to be Aragorn. She looked up to him as a captain and a warrior because she wanted to identify with who he is. She wants to be the hero, and so she has a case of hero worship. After she's achieved her own brave deeds on the battlefield and proven her courage, her previous feelings dissolve because she has become the person she wanted to be, and she's ready to embrace another new aspect of her womanhood. I just really love that insight about Éowyn. I especially enjoyed the essays exploring the concept of the hero and the hero's quest. It was so interesting to see how ancient legends, and in particular Beowulf, shaped Tolkien's fantasy. One essay contrasts the different quests of Aragorn and Frodo. Aragorn goes on a quest to gain a kingdom and a princess, but Frodo goes on a quest to lose the ring. So their quests are kind of opposite, a quest to gain something, a quest to lose something. Fairy tales are full of the weak third sons who are humble, and they go on adventures to win the kingdom and marry the princess. And northern legends like Beowulf are full of strong warriors, but they die tragically in darkness at the end. And Frodo and Aragorn have swapped places in their destinies. In Lord of the Rings, it's the weak and humble hero, Frodo, who must tragically die, and like King Arthur, sail across the sea to have his wounds healed. And it's the brave, strong warrior, Aragorn, who wins the princess and the kingdom and a legacy of happy generations. I really love that Tolkien incorporated these literary tropes, but then flipped them upside down. I also really loved how many of the essays talked about Tolkien's Christian worldview being reflected in The Lord of the Rings. One talks about how Christianity teaches that God is always there to help us, and yet we are expected to put in the effort ourselves to get through life. Just as the powerful Valar are involved in the affairs of Middle-earth, but Frodo and Sam must make the journey to Mount Doom themselves. This essay by Patricia Meyersbach says, the idea of free will is intimately involved with fate. Our individual choices contribute to a larger fate that is destined by a higher power. The essays on literary style were especially good because they analyzed how fairy stories are meant to reveal to us truths in the real world. Fairy stories offer an escape from the real world, only to point us back to the real world with a fresh perspective, where ordinary things take on a new significance. One essay said, "It is not a refusal to face reality, it is a time needed to regroup one's forces for the next day's battle." That is from R.J. Riley. So we come away from Tolkien's fantasy inspired with the courage to face our own daily battles in life. Jane Chance's essay had some very interesting ideas about how Gollum represents the monster without, and Frodo is battling the monster within. Even Shelob and Saruman represent the intellectual monster and the sensual monster. And Denethor and King Theoden represent different Germanic lords of legend, one fighting for family and the other fighting for selfish power. It was very interesting to see these parallels and kind of examine the contrast there. Another cool essay was the one from Tom Shippey about how Peter Jackson's movie trilogy captured the most essential messages of Lord of the Rings and translated them to the screen. Although, of course, many things were changed and left out or added to the movies, the spirit of Tolkien's story was kept intact. This is such a great collection of essays that explore a lot of the different insights and ideas into Tolkien's work. I loved this so much. It really captured my interest and I felt like I learned a lot. This will definitely change how I read Lord of the Rings. Please leave a comment and let me know what is one of your favorite little insights into the characters or the plot of Lord of the Rings. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.